if you're going to ask somebody to give you the 8 or 10 hours it takes them to read one of your novels, you damn well ought to bring something to the table that's worth their time. I wrote The Big Mango, and it was just kind of a giggle. I mean, can I write a novel? What's going to happen to it? Is anybody going to read it? And the local publisher out here sold a couple of 100,000 copies. And I thought, oh shit, now I got to take this seriously. So I sat down and sort of thought about it and decided that there was a novel in the experience of being an expat without trying to be too precious about it. Americans don't have the expat experience. We are deeply suspicious of those among us who choose to live somewhere else. And I wanted to build that into a novel with a guy. So I picked a guy, and he had a law degree because I know what that means. I've got one too. And he just got fed up with the horseshit in Washington one day and walked out. And a friend of his offered him a job teaching at a university here. And he thought that's a great change. He'd never been to Bangkok. Why not? So he became a member of the faculty at Chulalongkorn University here. And again, that was the beginning point. But the rest of it came, as I said, in the Lego fashion. You build this. I decided he needed a girlfriend, and to avoid the essential cliches of Bangkok bar girl novels, I invented an Italian artist who happened to be living here. And it was unique at that time because he did not go to bars and chase bar girls. He actually had a European girlfriend who he lived with. And these pieces pyramided and built up and like that.
What was in terms of his specialty at tracking missing money? What did you know someone that did that, or what did you just do local research on that?
No, I mean, without saying too much about it, when I was in the finance business, we were deeply involved in banking and finance throughout Asia. So I had a certain amount of expertise. The Wall Street Journal actually reviewed Laundryman, and it's in the Asian version of the Wall Street Journal, and produced a wonderful line, which I've cited ever since, in which the reviewer said, Needham seems to know rather more than one should about this sort of thing. And that was really the beginning of it, that because I had some personal expertise, I wrote that into the character. I thought, okay, I need to do a different kind of series, or I'm going to go crazy doing the Shepherd novels. And I was in Singapore for some reason, I can't remember why. And I thought, okay, if I've got to have a detective, I've got to have a phone. I've got to have a name. So I picked up the phone book and started going through the phone book, looking at names. And I found Samuel Tay. And I thought, that's pretty good. That's a good name for a detective. And Samuel Tay was born, and I made the rest of it up from there. I mean, I think there's a long tradition of foreign detectives who end up giving you an insight into the places they detect. I mean, God knows there are plenty of examples of that, and there are plenty of series like that. But I didn't know of one set in Asia, and at the time I didn't think there was one anywhere. And that was really the idea. After I wrote the first book, it was actually quite funny because I had pretty good sources in government and lots of places in Singapore. And after the book was published, those sources vanished because all of a sudden it was, it's like all cop novels, right? You got crooked cops, you have stupid cops, you have things go wrong. Not in Singapore, man. No. Every cop is 16 feet tall and has a level of honesty equivalent to Jesus Christ. And, you can't say anything that implies that they don't get their man within an hour and a half. People were furious. And it caused a problem, but it sold a lot of copies in Singapore. What can I say? I've never had a publisher in the US that publishers have simply said over and over, Americans don't like Asia. They don't want to read about it. And one of my favorite blurbs of all time was the South China Morning Post in Hong Kong. It said Needham is probably the best known American writer nobody in America ever heard of. that cuts two ways, doesn't it? I mean, that's some ways that's amusing, and other ways you want to cry. But I mean, that's true. I've never been in a bookstore in the U.S. I've sold probably 1 million books, but never appeared on the shelf of a single Barnes and Noble anywhere in the U.S. and never will, I'm sure. So I'm happy now. I found my niche. I do what I do. I've got a good audience that stuck with me in many cases for 25 or 30 years, and I'm happy as hell to have them.